everyone, it's Katie and Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
We just got, well, first of all, this is Driving Home the Movie, and we just got out of X-Men Apocalypse. I have opinions! Opinions! If you didn't know, just recently, I wrapped up a project for Comics Alliance called 100 X-Men, where we ranked, 120 X-Men, that we then they got down to 100 of the top X-Men, mostly by just our general opinions, but we also did voting for the general site so that readers could also do it. So in the last 5.5 months, I have been researching, trying to read up on as much X-Men as I can. I knew some, didn't know other parts of it, so I did a lot of reading, a lot of research to help make my decisions for it. So I'm recently versed in a lot of X-Men stuff. But even if I wasn't, most of the things I had problems with in this movie, I would probably have had problems with anyway. But now I have more reason to be mad about them. So with that disclaimer, I thought it was okay, but the things that got me really mad about it, I'm really mad about for really specific reasons. What about you?
I would say I definitely liked it better than you because you told me a bit about it before, but I still don't think it's more of a pass for me. Like it passes as a movie. I feel like if you're a big X-Men fan, you'd still want to watch it, but it will make you mad. There's some things that will make you mad. There's a lot of things that they do pretty well in this.
I feel like it's fairly par for the course for the 3 X-Men movies. The First Class. What was the second one? I should know this.
First Class, and then was it... I forget what the other one was called.
Gosh darn it, and it's another one that's based off an event in the comics, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the one with time travel. That one. And then this one being Apocalypse, based off of the Apocalypse comic.
Oh, Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past. AKA the one where Kitty Pryde's storyline just got thrown out the window for more Wolverine. Surprisingly, this movie also throws out a female character's scenes, and instead inserts an 8-minute Wolverine cameo. Surprise! Wolverine's in this. I don't think it's that much of a surprise. I don't think it's a spoiler because they can't
Another car drove up on top of that curb.
Oh man, don't do that then, hun.
I know.
Okay,
I see that all the time.
Anyway, so yeah. First off, can we have one X-Men movie that doesn't have Wolverine in it? We know he exists. He's supposed to be nothing happening to him right now, and they still managed to get him in the damn movie. I don't even mind him that much, but one of the things I said in my 100 X-Men ranking when we got to Logan was, look, I think that he's actually done really well often, but there's so much oversaturation, both in the movies and in the comics. And if we could just, right now he's dead in the comics, and it'd be really nice if we could just, get away from him as a character for a while. I don't care. I don't want to not care, but I don't care. Anyway.
It's overexposure drawback.
Yeah, basically. So, I think we should, let's really quickly get down to it. So, Apocalypse is the quote-unquote first mutant, and every so often, in the movie, he'll transfer over to another body.
And gain that mutant's powers.
And gain that mutant's powers along with his own. And basically, add on to it. So during Egyptian times, vaguely, I think they might have actually said the date, I can't remember.
Yeah, they gave it a date, 3900 BC or something.
Whatever. He transferred his body over to Oscar Isaac, so we got to see Oscar Isaac's beautiful face for about
30 seconds.
For 30 seconds, maybe a minute and a half, before he gets transformed into Ivan Ooze. But then a coup happens and his body gets sealed but protected. Even though he has regeneration, that was the mutant power that Oscar Isaac's first, like the guy that Apocalypse transfers his essence into, had. So he's protected for years and years and years.
What we'll eventually discover is that Oscar Isaac was really Wolverine's father all along.
Oh, don't even joke about that. I'm really worried that they're gonna find a way to make that a thing. I was waiting for it to be something like that. Or to be something like really... Actually, when they cut him open to test... By the way, that guy seemed real serene as they cut open his chest and you could see his, like, intestines and then But I was like, oh, Christ, they didn't put Logan in this, did they? And I was like, oh, no, wait, it's bald Oscar Isaac. We're fine, everybody. Everybody calm down. Logan's not Apocalypse. Woo! Anyway, so, and then we go to the 80s. 10 years after the last movie. So Magneto's been in hiding and has been happy and basically content with his place in the world, which clearly means that something horrible is going to happen.
Horrible and tragic.
Like, again, catching up to a lot of like the comics over the last few months, I've just learned that anytime Magneto tries to be both happy and also like a good, like just a decent human being and not trying to murder all humans, like it never works. Because they can never let him be happy. He has to be a bad guy.
Wait, even when Magneto is trying to murder all humans, everything goes wrong for him anyway.
I know, because he has a horrible existence.
Wrong for Magneto.
He has a horrible existence. And let's see, the Xavier School is built up. Cyclops shows up at the school. He's the new kid. His brother, who somehow has not aged since the 60s. It's 20 years since the first movie.
Don't worry about it. Time travel.
Maybe 15. I forget exactly what year of the 60s. I forget when the Cuban Missile Crisis was. The point is that it's been well over a decade.
You've had a time skip.
And yet, no one's aged. Maybe Magneto. Magneto seems they've done a little bit to the face. But largely, they're just like a decade and a half isn't going to do anything to people. It's fine. I mean, they even make a joke about Moira McTaggart, who's in this movie, by the way, where Charles is like, oh my gosh, she hasn't aged a day. And I was like, stop being a creepy man. Stop being a creeper. Sorry. Anyway.
Isn't that the definition of Charles Xavier?
I got so mad at this movie. So Moira wasn't in the last movie because her brain was wiped at the end of the first movie. And everybody's like, wait, why doesn't Moira remember any of us? And Charles like, oh, well, I kind of erased her memory without her permission. And everybody's kind of just chill about it. And I'm like, almost everybody should... I get that a lot of people a lot of the characters would have been like, oh, whatever. But when Mystique finds out, I want her to go like, wow, you were such an asshole. I thought you were already an asshole, and yet you're such a bigger asshole. But instead
you always find ways to make yourself look like more of an asshole.
Yeah, but she doesn't really do that. She's just like, oh, lucky her. And it's like, no, someone needs to call Charles Xavier out on his shit. Someone, for the love of God. He's such an asshole. Kitty Pryde isn't there to call him a jerk. I'm so mad about this. Anyway, so... where was I? So Apocalypse shows up. Actually, Moira basically... MacGuffins it. Like, she wakes him up.
Because she's archaeologist Indiana Jones.
Ish. She still works for the CIA.
She's CIA archaeologist.
But she ends up accidentally waking him up, but she escapes. And Charles finds her, and he's like, oh, hello. I don't think we've met. Or have we? I mean, we haven't. And then there was a whole bit, I swear to God, I can't believe they did this, where they're like, oh, you have a son, because he sees on her desk that she has a kid. She's like, oh yeah, that's my son. And he goes, does he have a husband? I mean, like, do you have does he have a father? Yes, but we're separated because of the job. And I'm like, oh, we all know where this is going. Because you see, in the comics, Moira had a child with Charles, and he was basically the most effed up child ever.
Who wouldn't be?
It's Legion. Like, he is the guy, he is the mutant with 1,000 personalities in his brain who all want to get out and just murder people. It's like basically it's the worst existence in a universe full of terrible existences. So, and I think Fox is trying to make a show about Legion, which if they're making the continuity, again, it would be interesting. Anyway, so Apocalypse gets awakened and he immediately finds Storm, who is a thief in Egypt, which is actually part of her character.
Origin.
But then she basically, like, she seems to have some kind of personality and is kind of hanging out with some thieves, like these kid thieves. And then as soon as Apocalypse, like, gives her extra power, all of her personality goes away. Like, she's just a silent...
Does she even have another line towards the end of the movie?
I think, like, one or two. I think she has some in the scenes where they're gathering followers, but she has very little. She basically becomes just, I mean, I don't want to say a sexy lamp because she's supposed to be a teenager, but you get what I'm saying. She was basically a lamp who occasionally strikes lightning at people. And it really bugged me. It bugs me a lot. Especially, it was interesting. Like, one of the more interesting parts of it, though, is when Apocalypse is kind of recruiting her. And he's mostly talking in English, but he keeps going back to ancient Egyptian. And he goes like, this world needs, and he says in cleansing in Egypt, in ancient Egyptian. And Storm asks what he said, and he says saved. And I thought that was the most interesting. It's like, oh, okay. So obviously he's trying to turn this into, but there's so many things an Apocalypse does, and you can never really tell if it's like her being totally absorbed by his power and her not realizing all the damage that's being done, or if, you know what I mean? Like, it could have done so much more for her to struggle against it, but to be so swept up in that power, for her to be like occasionally like kind of be jolted out of it by the horrible things that are happening around. Instead, all of the four horsemen that he collects basically just stand around him in a like album cover on rocks. It's super bad. Psylocke is also not used well.
They also constantly look like they're posing for like a rock metal album.
That's what I'm saying. Like an album cover. Like, we're super cool now. We have cool outfits.
But no, not just like in the scene where they're on the rocks, but constantly throughout the movie.
Yeah, that too. But so Psylocke is underused a lot. Like, she has no personality. She doesn't. She has nothing. Just nothing. Caliban's there too. So that's something. If you're a fan of Caliban, he shows up kind of, but he's not a Morlock, and I don't think he has the same personality.
Well,
so
you know what? Maybe he is a Morlock. We didn't really get into the origin of Caliban.
Yeah, it was still kind of like, oh, he's just a guy
who speaks in the third person.
And then Angel had some stupid moments. First of all, again, no personality. He's the only white guy in the movie that gets like no arc or no personality. All the other white guys in the movie get to do stuff. He's the only one that's with the women of color in this that get to do nothing. But yeah, he's basically like, he's fighting in this ring and he gets burned by Nightcrawler because they were forced to fight.
Mutant balls.
Yeah.
That one.
Are you saying this movie was boring?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's watchable, but I don't know if I'd ever want to watch it again. Because there weren't that many fun moments. But yeah, so Angel gets burned. And so Apocalypse comes like, I can fix that. And then there's this like a long drawn his wings turn to metal, which happens in the comics, but it's like the most melodramatic, really doofy. And I think there's like some rock music playing behind him.
Yeah,
and it's so.
And then he does this pose at the end of it.
I know, it's so bad. It's like, and I get it, like they're going for melodramatic, but it's so doofy. Not all the moments were doofy. Actually, the women's moment, like when he like adds more power to Storm, it was kind of creepy.
And it was much more like
sensual.
Well,
I hate to say that because she's supposed to be a teenager, but it was kind of like there was like gasping.
And then her hair just turns white, but it was like much more understated.
Also, so question: how does that happen in the other continuity?
Yeah, I know.
How does that happen? Because
I'm guessing in this universe, they're saying that Apocalypse just awakens their dormant powers. The power that they have laid dormant inside them. Whereas in the regular universe, it took them years to train to get to that level.
I guess. I'm not going to complain too much about that, but that's just one of the many things.
That's how I would explain it.
So then Magneto, essentially when Apocalypse is woken up, there's a little earthquake, and he's in this, like, metal yard, which, honestly, like, why did he choose that job? He could have chosen, like, another job where he's not near metal and being, like, tempted to use his power. But he ends up saving a man's life because, you know, it's just instinct. So someone notices, like, at least a few people noticed and kind of could put together the pieces. And and some of the local police force take his daughter, who is I think like 6 or so, and she's freaked out, and he says, "Okay, I'll go quietly." And the girl who has started mutant abilities, she's clearly has some control over animals. I think she was made up for this movie because we've never seen her in the comics. By the way, you could totally tell that they were setting him up. Like, first scene, we could tell that they were gonna be Fridge, at least the daughter, because she asks about her grandparents, and he says, you know, like, oh, they were taken from me. And she says, like, will you be taken from me? No, I would never let that happen. And it's like, oh, she's so dead. She's so dead. And then they fridge her and the wife. And it was really awkward because you couldn't tell when there's, like, an arrow pointed at her.
Yeah, they shot her with an arrow on accident or whatever.
But it went through
the daughter and also killed the wife as well.
But you couldn't tell. So I thought that they would both be screaming. And then Eric was like, I don't know. They were like, my girls or something like that. And then he uses the locket with his parents that he had given to his daughter to just flat out, like, as a bullet, it just murders them through the neck. And then when he goes to, like, murder his former co-workers, who clearly some of them had turned on him, Apocalypse comes and just murders him for him. And it's almost funny, but I don't think it was meant to be funny. I don't know. Like, Apocalypse likes to, like, melt people into like floors and into walls. And so it's fairly horrific. Right?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a little horrific. And but it's kind of played for a joke. I don't know. It was a little awkward. And then up until, like, again, the only Horseman of the Apocalypse with any personality throughout all of this is Magneto. And the only reason why he gets that is so that he has more like bromance stuff with Charles.
Which is another flaw of this movie. There's so much Charles and Eric stuff. And
it's like, and to the detriment of basically all of the newer characters, all the younger characters who should be the people that you're setting up for the next movie. So this is where we get to, this is the fatal flaw of the movie for me. So you have Jubilee, who is a character in this, who has very little lines. In fact, her very first scene, Charles ignores her hand raise and class because he sees the two Summers brothers walk through the room. Basically, it is a symbol of the movie that they ignore the fun, awesome female character played by an Asian American actress for the two white kids. The two male white guys. Just like, it basically sets up how this movie ignores Jubilee.
Who could have been a really fun addition to this movie and added some, levity and some joy and some happiness.
And they cut out all of her scenes. I know that they shot scenes with her. So they take Kurt, who just got rescued by Mystique. They take Kurt, Jubilee, Jean, and Scott all go to the mall, right?
Yeah. And
we have all those scenes cut, besides one where they make a crack about Jubilee saying the right thing about how Empire was the best movie. It was the best of the Star Wars movies because they just got out of Return of the Jedi. And Scott going, but you couldn't have the second one without the first one. It set up so many things. And then Gene going, well, we all know the third movie is always the worst. And see, the joke is, because this is the first, because this movie is the third movie. But Mike and I were laughing our asses off because we were thinking about how the third movie of the original one was just flat out garbage.
Hot garbage.
Hot garbage. And the fact that Gene was saying that about how badly the Phoenix Saga was fudged up in that made me very happy. But then, so then they drive back and essentially Apocalypse has helped explode the mansion. And they're driving back. And Quicksilver has come to help out because he finds out his father's in trouble. So he ends up saving everybody. And arguably the funniest scene in the movie, but it does go on just a little too long.
Yeah, a little bit
There's
too long.
also he is under a time crunch. He didn't have to do so many shticky things that only he could notice. And I kept thinking, if he dies during this, I'm going to be it's your own damn fault. Because you had to, pose and, mess with some kid's hair and eat pizza. Just get down to work, okay? So, but yeah, so then...
It was basically... Remember how everyone liked the Quicksilver scene in the second movie?
Yeah.
And it was okay, how could we do that but bigger? And they went too big.
Yeah, then they went too big. He was still one of the better parts of the movie, but that's because he's levity.
He's the only thing that's giving any levity.
Yeah.
He's the only one cracking any jokes.
Well, and then, so here's the thing. So some of the... During, the next part of the movie, when some of the adults are taken, some of the younger kids, some of the students, go and sneak on and try to rescue them. So, but it's only Jean, Scott, and Kurt. Why isn't Jubilee part of that? The only reason why is because the writers just decided not to use her. Not only that, we didn't get to see her powers either. She was basically a cameo in a movie that should have been her with those other three being the next generation of mutants. It made no sense not to use her. No sense whatsoever. And I'm really mad about that. That basically takes it down like a grade for me. Even though I thought that the rest was okay. It's convoluted and there's other stuff, and the fact that they didn't use Storm was just frustrating. And the fact that that Psylocke had no personality was honestly I was prepared for it, but I was still frustrated. But the fact that they had this setup with these teens, we're gonna go with the adult X-Men and end up helping save the day, and the fact that they didn't use Jubilee when she's in the movie, when she was a part of that group up until that point, makes me furious.
Hey.
Furious.
Furious. On the bright side, they've given Scott more than he's ever had in either of the last 3 movies that he's been in. Scott Summers, everyone's favorite. Cyclops. Everybody's favorite.
Should we get into spoilers now so that I can talk about Scott?
Yeah, let's go into spoilers.
All right, ready? Spoilers. Spoilers. All right.
So, Glover off.
Glover off. So Havoc dies in this. First of all, we got no.
To be fair, we don't know Havoc dies.
Yeah,
You never see a body.
honestly, the Summers family, death is kind of, I mean, death,
Quotes.
quote unquote.
Air
So-
quotes. Massive air quotes.
You know, we still have time. We still have time for him to become the Goblin Prince.
Plenty of time.
Oh, that's gonna be a great costume. If they change a hair on that costume. Have you seen the costume for this?
Probably not.
Okay. Have you seen Madeline Pryor's costume?
Oh, yes.
That
yes.
one? He gets the exact same one.
costume, yeah.
It's amazing. So if they ever do Inferno, they could always bring back Havoc, and it would be amazing. I hope they do. That would make the whole thing with Havoc in this one worth it. I swear to God. All right. Anyway, so he dies, and we've had zero, like very very little interaction between him and Scott. But then we're supposed to believe that Scott is just torn up, and I get it. Like, it's his brother and stuff, but it's not like there was any setup for their relationship or what they were like. I mean, we don't even know if the people who raised Scott are his biological parents in this with Havoc, or if it was just his his adopted parents. Like, they don't explain any of this. And they don't explain how Havoc is so much older than Scott. None of this makes any sense. Sorry. But there is the one thing that does make sense with Scott is him going, I feel so guilty about my brother's death. It should have been me. Okay, there's a Scott Summers I know. There's a Scott Summers I know. Yep, that makes sense. Along with, and then like Gene's like, no, he believed in you. He thought that you would be the part one. Like, yes, let's try to boost up Scott's. Again, it should have been me. It's like, yeah, that's Scott. Okay, he was fine. I mean, some of the stuff with him was kind of like, it was just kind of off because the writing for all the kid characters was just okay.
It's like they put all their effort into the Eric and Charles relationship.
Yeah.
And then they sort of took one character point of each of the other major characters, I'd call them, in this movie.
Yeah.
And then stuck with those storylines throughout.
I'll give them this. So I'll say a few things that I like. Now that we're getting into spoilers. I like that Gene and Scott didn't get together at all during this. They had some good moments.
They hinted at it a lot.
But it felt like teenagers like dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
And then becoming kind of friends. And them kind of dealing with the fact that they both feel kind of like he felt like a freak at his old school, and she's the one that people are afraid of now, and they can relate to each other. So, and it was done pretty well. There was no like making out between the two of them. In fact, I think there was no kissing in this movie.
There's no joy in this movie.
No, I meant no kissing in a good way, though.
Yeah, I know.
Like, there was no real, like, love story besides, like, the one about Eric losing his family over and over again. But, like, there was no actual, except for, like, the flashback of Charles kissing Moira, and then which I was like, fuck that scene. I hate that scene so much.
Let's talk about Charles and Moira, then.
Well, that's like...
Oh, wait, yeah, you were going to talk about things you like.
All right,
things you like. Things you like. Because I want to get on that topic soon.
I liked when they went to the mall. No, but that was like this much...
That was
there is a scene.
45 seconds.
This is what gets me mad too. There was a whole scene that I know that they did where Gene and Scott are in the record shop and they pick up a Dazzler album. That would have been the best thing ever, and they took it out of the movie, Mike. They took it out of the movie. Dazzler's the best, and the fact that they took that out is, how dare you? How dare you do that? Take away Jubilee from getting to have adorable moments? How dare you? How dare you?
There's
so mad. There's so little joy. Jubilee would have brought all the joy. I'm gonna keep harping on this. All right, good thing. Sorry. I actually like that Jubilee is, or not. I really like that Jean Grey is the one to kick Apocalypse's ass, and the fact that Charles recognizes it, just like, Jean, I need you to get in there and kick his ass. It's so weird because they're still
you've seen it telegraphed though throughout the entire final scene, and I'll hand it to them. They did the Phoenix right.
I really liked her energy in that moment. Not the special effects, but I mean like her acting in that.
Even the special effects looked really good.
Yeah, but her poise and stuff in that scene was really good. Also, I really like that actress. Sansa Stark deserves so much better, and I thought it was so perfect for her to get cast because both Jean and Sansa Stark are two female characters that just get shit on both in text and in the writing all the time, and so it just felt right for her to be able to be this person that everybody underestimates and yet is super powerful. So I'm hoping that they do that right.
I really
would have
wished, though, during the final scenes that they actually gave her some fighting scenes. Because she's all, holding on to Xavier and, mental telepathying.
Yeah.
She doesn't do any fighting. She's just, she's
I did
radio.
like the fact. I will say I like the fact that she was actually using her powers in interesting, being able to hide her friends from the soldiers and stuff was really smart.
Yeah.
And she did a lot of smart things on the fly that felt like she was using cleverness in order to.
Yeah, a lot of times they use her similar to how McGann is used in Young Justice, I thought.
Yeah, she was.
But they didn't give her any scenes of where she's really getting into the fray.
Yeah. And then as far as Kurt goes, I really wish they had given Kurt a little more jokiness. I'm really hoping the next movie they actually let them joke around a little bit more.
I mean,
and actually be kind of the carefree, swashbuckly guy, because he didn't really get to do that much in this one.
It's more like they were like, oh, this is who he is in X2, so what would the X2 Nightcrawler be like as a kid?
Yeah.
And that's what it really felt like.
At least they didn't make him Pope.
Yeah. But they could have had fun with Nightcrawler, but they didn't. And they just were like, you know what? This is the Nightcrawler we saw in X2, so let's just shrink down that character.
I will say this. For all that they've changed Mystique, I do like the fact that they said, okay, what if she is seen as a hero by this next? What if this version of Mystique, she's given a reason to be a hero because these kids look up to her? That's actually pretty powerful, and I actually like the way that they did that. And it doesn't feel like I felt like she was actually used pretty well in this. As far as her inspiring the kids, and then the kids inspiring her to be better. The fact that she did that, and that she basically is the reason why Storm decides to turn to good, is pretty interesting, just as a female inspiration thing. I liked the fact that that they gave her some motivation and stuff. Now, granted, some of it was Eric, but whatever. I don't know. I thought that she was done fine. There were way worse ways that they could have treated her, and I thought that it's an interesting take on the character that she's given a reason to want to be on the side of the X-Men.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm okay with it. I think that it's an interesting way to go with the character. Like I said, though, I wish that she wasn't the only female character that really got a lot of coverage. Also, that choking scene. The fact that they used it in the ad so much is really gross. It's still fairly gross in the movie, but I don't think it's helped the fact that the ads of Apocalypse just choking the life out of a naked Mystique is kind of awful.
I really didn't notice that in
Oh, you haven't seen it? There are billboards.
Oh, really? There are billboards?
There are billboards where it's literally it's the title of the movie in the corner, but it is Apocalypse holding her and her just almost dying.
That's pretty sucky.
I will Google that when we get in, because it's pretty gross.
I mean, I stay away from as much as I can.
I know.
I usually pretty much only watch the trailers.
I know. I'm just telling you. I'll show it to you. But that in that context, that scene really bugs me.
Yeah.
So, besides that, Xavier finally loses his hair, which I could figure out how pretty early. Once they were like, we're going to put, it was like, oh, well, Apocalypse is bald, so he's clearly going to lose all of his hair.
Yeah, I wonder how he lost his hair in the original timeline.
I think it was just age.
Age.
Or he always, yeah.
He was always meant to be bald.
Or he was always meant to be bald. It was fate. Let's see. So Moira gets her memory back, and then he's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, okay, now punch him in the face. I kept whispering it to Mike, punch him in the face, Moira. Punch him in the face. And instead she's like, oh, it's Charles.
Not
I'm
even
like,
a slap. It's
why?
Like...
I mean, I know he just had, like, his mind completely fucked with by Apocalypse, and, like, he almost died. But he deserves to be, like, punched in the... I would have even taken her being like, when you're better, I'm going to punch you in the face. Because that's so stupid. It's so stupid.
When you aren't struggling for your life, I'm going to punch you in the face.
It is so messed up that no one called him on the fact that it is totally a violation of, like, of agency, and to completely wipe the mind of someone who's only, and then to say, like, oh, well, I was trying to protect her. Also the fact that, like, when they said, I'm not even kidding you, when they were like, well, have you checked in on her? Well, no, that would be creep. Like, I'm not a pervert. Well, yes, a few times. I'm like, that's because you're the worst. You're the worst, Charles. The worst. Ugh. So, what else do you want to talk about? Is there anything else that sticks out at you besides, like, I don't know? I feel like we've covered most of it.
We've covered a lot.
Oh, there was the creepy thing where Jean and a young Jean and Wolverine meet for the first time. And it's kind of creepy to be like, oh yeah, this is the woman you're going to be obsessed with, Logan. She's too young for you.
No, it's a new timeline now. So he doesn't have to be.
Well, hopefully, but apparently, you know, like, they're probably going to...
pieces a little bit of his mind back together, and it's like...
That was actually pretty interesting. So
yeah,
they could actually do something, but then of course, and it was funny because when he looks at Scott, I whisper to Mike, "Why do I suddenly want to stab this guy?" We
riffed this movie pretty hard.
I know.
Actually,
and the thing is that in the comics, generally Logan and Cyclops actually are friends. Like, the whole Jean thing only gets kind of retconned in later, but generally, even though they didn't always agree, they were actually pretty good. They're pretty good teammates to each other. Even they just sometimes butted heads about a few things, but like everybody else. I will say, even though I'm still frustrated by the way Storm was treated in the movie, I did like the fact that she and Cyclops fought, because their whole thing is that they're traditionally the two leaders of the team at different points. So them fighting, like, they've had fights in the comics before, either like friendly fights or like fights with over who will be the leader of the team. So that was really fun. It was really fun to see that, even though it was frustrating. But no. So yeah, when they help Logan escape, then Jean says, like, oh, I've helped him piece together a few of his memories, which may mean that it changes Wolverine's dynamic in later... It probably means that he's going to be back in a more substantial way in the next movie.
Here's another thing.
But I did like the fact that Cyclops goes, here's hoping we don't see that guy again. Wah, wah. Anyway, all right, anything else you got to add?
Yeah, you know what? One thing I noticed in this movie, because it's so totally obvious that they just hammer it over your head, Bryan Singer really loves his X-Men movies that he made.
Yeah, there was a lot of flashbacks to his old X-Men movies.
They're not really flashbacks, because they just go to the places that occurred in his movies. Like, they went back to Auschwitz to awaken Magneto's powers, and it's like, destroy it, Magneto! Why not? And, you know, that's how Magneto awakens his powers. So.
They went back to the second movie. They went back to, did they go back to, was that the Brooklyn version?
Magneto's was the first movie.
But in the second movie, they went back to where...
to where Logan came from. They went back to that dam and, you know, Stryker. And it's like...
Stryker was in the second movie, though, the Days of Future Past.
Yeah. You know what's another thing that they could have entirely removed from this movie?
Wolverine.
and just and it's attached to that, but then had more character moments for everyone else in this movie. It's called Stryker coming in out of nowhere, kidnapping everyone, and then taking him off to, flashback to X2 land, and then everyone escaping from there, and then there's no reason to ever be there.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to get them off of the out of the mansion. I don't know. Also, can we talk about how the stupidest thing about this movie was in the end when Magneto and Jean Grey just rebuild the entire school? How? Look, I get it. The whole point was Magneto can now earthbend. There's a part literally where Apocalypse is oh, I can help you earthbend. Feel the metal in the earth and then bend it. I mean, move it. You can move the world. As if you can bend the earth. He's an earthbender now, that's what I'm saying. So him redoing the entire mansion, okay, fine. That's the most comic booky thing I've seen in this whole movie. Except for that point at the beginning when one of the horsemen from the ancient Egyptian time basically crunches a guy so that his entire so that all of his legs. Do you remember that shot where one of the assassins comes and jumps out of nowhere, and then he basically gets crunched into a ball like a cartoon character? Do you remember this?
I kind of remember it.
It is so goofy, and I'm that is both horrific and the most cartoony comic booky thing I've seen yet. And then it gets one-upped by them rebuilding the mansion. To be fair, when I saw that, I was well, how many times in the comics has a mansion blown up? I mean, the Wolverine and the X-Men comic from a few years ago basically made that joke 5 times. Half the mansion blew up. This is the 7th time I've seen that happen, you guys. Oh, man. But that was pretty doofy. Oh, well, speaking of Bryan Singer loving his older X-Men movies, how about the fact that there's a word-for-word recreation of the end of the first X-Men movie when Eric is asking him, and what will you do when, or where he says hope. They have that hope line that they have at the end of the movie, and then he goes I would have pity for anyone who tries to come through these halls. I'm you mean Apocalypse when he blew you up? Or,
after you were kidnapped, how the government came in and just took everybody? Just kidnapped everyone?
Yeah.
Isn't that exactly what happens in X2 too?
To be fair, I do like the fact that this is another thing that's actually a big plot hole. Stryker just going, leave the children. Really? You didn't want to kidnap all the children like you do
in X2?
Like you did in X2? Same character? I hate mutants, but I guess I'm not going to kidnap all the children, just that one. No, I think they were all adults. But still,
just these children.
No, I think it was all the adults because it was Quicksilver for some reason. Why? I mean, I guess maybe they knew that he's Lynch's kid. That's the only reason why he would have been picked out of all of them. But and then Moira, and it was all the adults. But still, then it's leave the children who I kind of want to kill, but whatever. It doesn't make any sense. Jubilee doesn't get to use her powers. I'm never going to be over this. Okay. We've been fairly harsh about this movie. I thought it was okay. It's middle of the road. If you really like the other movies, I think you'll find something to enjoy in this, but there's a lot of missed opportunities for the younger kids and using the cool 80s setting.
Yeah,
right?
They don't really use the 80s setting at all, and they just sort of
only bits and pieces, but very little.
It's a very just no hope, joyless movie. It's an apocalypse movie. It's a disaster
Which I get, but they could have still added in other things.
They needed more levity in this movie, but they just didn't add it.
And like I said, the fact that basically all the women of color in this movie are so underutilized, despite despite like having so much of the ads be about them, is really upsetting and kind of insulting as a fan of basically all those characters. So that's really disappointing.
And the whole Stryker thing didn't need to be there.
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it because I think it's something that gives some interesting layers.
It moves them towards what they need to do. But it was very convenient. Like, oh look, Wolverine's here, and oh look, there's some flight uniforms that just happen to be all black leather, and also they have a plane that we can fly. Oh look.
Apparently that plane can fly all the way to Egypt without refueling in the 80s.
So besides that,
Canada. From Canada. Oh wait, was it in the United States? Was that thing in the United States, or was that in Canada?
I think we've been in Canada.
Or was it the United States because it was U.S. government?
Oh, you know what? It would have been U.S. I think that they got rid of oh gosh, what's it called? The Alpha. Crap, what is it? There's a Canadian. Excuse me. There's a Canadian like superhero team that Wolverine was first a part of, and they kind of didn't use them in the movie. It's Alpha Force or Alpha Strike. No. Oh, this is gonna drive me nuts. But they're Canadian. The point is they're Canadian, and they were specifically tied to the Weapon X program, I believe. So the ending. I'm 99% sure that first of all, no one who hasn't like been knee deep in the comics for like years and years would see the ending of the movie and think like, okay, whatever. Basically, Wolverine's blood was taken by the Essex Corporation, and I can't be positive, but I think they're trying to set up Laura. They're trying to set up X-23. I hope.
We can only hope.
Because she's the best. She's kind of the best Wolverine. And right now she has a kick-ass comic series that everybody should check out because I really like that series. They're doing a really good job with her as Wolverine, as the main Wolverine now that Logan's dead. And she's a really cool character when she's used well. She's a really frustrating character when she's not used well, which means that the chances of her being screwed up in the X-Men movies are pretty high, considering what happened with the female characters for the majority of this movie.
Except for Jean and
Mystique. Mystique gets mostly some good moments. I still think she was fine. She could have been screwed up way more.
Yeah, well, they've given her like 3 movies full of stuff, character building.
And I thought Jean was done fine. Seriously, so the point is that I'm hoping for good stuff in the next movie. If you like the X-Men movies, you'll probably at least find good things about this one, even if you're frustrated by it. I didn't think it was as bad. I've seen some people be like, "Ugh, it was so bad." It was okay. It was okay. It was kind of run-of-the-mill. It's not nearly as bad as X3. They didn't murder as many interesting characters as they did in X3, which is always a plus. I'm excited to see what they do next, but I'm really, really mad that, again, I'm just going to keep saying it. I'm really mad that Jubilee got so little focus. They needed to do better by her, and they kind of failed at that. And that's why it's kind of right in the middle for me.
I still think these movies go too just melodramatic and dark, and like everything is overwritten. Every line feels like overwritten and overstated.
And you know what? This was their chance to do something fun, to do something colorful, to do something really enjoyable. But like to just have some, you said levity, and I think that's what it comes down to. Even in a movie called Apocalypse, there needed to be some joy because this was a fun setting, and it was a comic book movie, and it's an X-Men story, and that's supposed to have fun as well as, like, terrible, horrible things happening. There needs to be that balance of goofiness and fun, and also, like, just agony and crushing sorrow.
Yeah, they got the agony and crushing sorrow, certainly.
Oh, the other thing they really did well is setting up at the end where a child does not tell their biological parent that they're their child. Which is so X-Men. It was Quicksilver, if you didn't know. So Quicksilver is like, yeah, I'm not going to tell him. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going full Rachel Summers on this storyline. Great. So anyway, all right.
I think if you're going to bring it up in this movie, you should just have it happen in this movie.
He should have said, but that's the thing. Then if he had said, I'm your son, then his motivation would have been for his son instead of his motivation being for Charles again. And they had to make it about that. Because apparently that relationship... Which, by the way, all right, so I will go on a tangent a little bit, but there's been a thing that comes up whenever we talk about queer representation. And one of the things is like, well, I don't want gay guys in my story because, like, male friendship isn't treated. Oh, look, here's a movie that whereby two men in platonic, like, deep friendship relationship, okay? Like, bonded like brothers, not only in those last 3 movies, but in the 3 previous movies in the last continuity. And this happens more often than you would than you're thinking about. But you see a movie like this where all the marginalized characters are not being given their due, and instead all the focus on this platonic, like weirdly tight platonic relationship between 2 men. So you can't tell me that those kind of relationships don't show up, because they do. They do a lot. So you can't do that to me. Anyway, I'm done. I think I'm tired. I want to go to bed. It was fine. It's not the best. It could have been way better. And I really feel like I feel disappointed at the potential that was just kind of tossed away.
There's potential that was tossed away, but there was good elements here, kind of.
I'm not saying there were bad, or that there weren't good elements. I just don't think that they were utilized.
Yeah, okay. You
good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like I said before, I think I like it a little bit more than you, but I don't hate it as much as you. Like there are the points that you hate, I also dislike. But I don't hate them as much as you do, because you certainly got angry at a lot of things here.
I got angry at a lot of things here.
Like, it's more middle of the road for me than it is for you. And you.
I think I gave it a C+ when we were sitting down.
Oh, I thought we don't give grades to things.
We don't, but I mean, but sometimes, like, I don't do it on.
If you're the C+, then I'm probably like the B-, almost B.
That's fair. I mean, and like I said, I don't think it's like the worst movie ever. I just am mad at the things that they
did wrong.
That they didn't do well enough. And they're the same things that the movies have not done well for a long time. And every time they have a chance to make another movie, they keep squandering like really specific characters that are highlights in the comics and even in the animated series. It gets very frustrating as someone who just wants to see female characters and female characters of color in particular get their due on the big screen, and when they don't, I'm going to call it out, you know? So that's where I'm at. Still, if you want to go see it, I think you'll probably find something to enjoy.
It's a passable movie.
It's passable, but just like be aware that there are going to be problems. So with that, Katie and Mike, justplainsomething.com, and we'll see you later.